Safety is the one thing you can do in your property. You can make it safe. I'm not talking like it's a rubber room and people are walking around with those sumo wrestler inflatable things on and they're not going to get hurt. But it's the one thing you can actually do and be successful at, because you're never going to have the right thread count. You're never going to have the fastest Wi-Fi, the right TV channel package, or the sharpest knives in the kitchen that everybody loves. Someone's always going to give you feedback. But the ultimate thing that you get when someone comes and stays in your property and they leave and nothing happened, nothing bad, they just leave and has said, we had a great time. That's your ultimate pat on the back. They didn't get hurt, because so many people do. So that ultimate trust that you have from your guests, you need to live up to that. You need to understand that if they're willing to come close their eyes in your property and trust you, that's pretty huge. So make your property safe so that you're living up to that ultimate trust. We don't often think about that.
My name is Rodman Schley. As a real estate expert, I've invested millions of dollars in vacation properties all around the world, and I've been involved in the valuation of billions of dollars of properties. I want to share my 35 years of experience along with vacation home investment tips from the top minds in the short-term vacation rental industry. Now, let's do the work. Hey everybody, welcome to the Vacation Property Secrets Podcast. I'm your host, Rodman Schley, and one of the things that vacation property owners often overlook is safety. And that's why today's episode is going to be one of the most important that we're going to have. Our guest is Justin Ford, an international short-term rental safety expert and director of vacation rental and safety certification at Breezeway that has an award-winning international short-term rental safety inspector program. Justin, welcome to the show.
Hey, Rodman, it's great to be here. I'm excited to talk to you here.
I'm excited to have you here, but you look like you're someplace better than I'm at right now. Where are you at? You've got the lake in the background. Things are looking pretty gorgeous up there.
Yeah, I'm in Maine, just outside of Acadia National Park. Very popular vacation destination. I'm a seventh-generation Mainer, so I'm at a family camp. We call them camps. People are always like, you camp a lot in Maine. I'm like, I never camp. Well, you always say you're a camp. Well, that's what we call them in Maine. Some people call them, in the Smoky Mountains, they call them cabins. Here it's a camp. It's just something that, in the wintertime, there's probably some mice running around, but in the summer, it's as homey and as comfortable as it can be.
Yeah, Maine is stunning. I mean, it's just a beautiful, beautiful area of the country. And, I think I watch some show every once in a while called, I think it's Maine Cabin Masters maybe, or something, where these guys, they kind of bumble around and do all this stuff. But every time they go into these cabins, I'm like, man, Maine has really got it going on. Looks like just a stunning place to be, particularly in the summer.
Yeah, I always tell people it's cooler to be in Maine. We've had some hot summers. The world's changing place, but a lot of people are certainly flocking here more than ever before because it's 100 degrees in North Carolina or Florida, Arizona. Here it's mid 80s, low 80s. So it's definitely a little bit cooler, but still feels like summer.
Awesome. I'm excited about our conversation today, Justin. I know that it's something that we don't talk a lot about as vacation homeowners. And I'm a big guy who talks a lot about mitigating risk.
Right.
How can we mitigate risk in what we're doing? That could be financial risk. It could be physical risk. It could be investment risk. There's all these different levels of risk that run through when you invest in short-term vacation rentals. And today, we're going to talk a little bit about those physical risks that happen at a property and how to mitigate those, how to lower the chances that we're going to have stuff happening. So could you tell us a little bit about your background first?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I served in the U.S. Coast Guard, so safety was kind of at my core, after high school, and did a lot of fishing vessel, boating safety, transitioned over after that into, of all things, the banking industry, because I was actually a yacht captain. So I used to manage a corporate yacht fleet, big old credit card bank called MBNA. They sold to Bank of America back in the early 2000s, but they would schmooze their customers on a yacht, and I was a captain of the yacht. At the same time, I kind of transitioned over into firefighting. I became a volunteer firefighter in my hometown, and I did that for 15 years. And then just happened to stumble at the same time that I got out of the banking industry. When Bank of America purchased MBNA, they gave me a year severance. I said, what am I going to do with this? And I had just started renting one home out. Before you knew that, after 11 years of operations, I grew it into the largest vacation rental company in New England. At one time, we managed as many as 600 homes, had a boat rental company, real estate company. And every aspect that you could have of property management, property type, lake, ocean, weddings and events. I did it all.
And the last thing that we think about when we buy these properties is that something's going to happen, that something's going to go. We always think about everything that's going to go right. We think about the money that we're going to be bringing in. We think about all those people coming to our property and getting all that enjoyment. But a lot of times we're not thinking about the things that could go wrong. And then by not thinking about those things, we don't take the action steps that we can do to avoid them.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. It's, to put it in perspective, the most dangerous, we talk about risk. You brought up risk, which is, I love that word. Paid accommodations, short-term rentals, vacation rentals, Airbnbs, whatever you want to call them, are the most dangerous segment of hospitality. And to put it in perspective, 7 people died in hotel fires last year in the United States. 3 people died on trains. A few people died on some cruise ships. They fell overboard. I think they jumped. And we haven't had a commercial airline incident in America since 2015 when that woman got sucked out of the window on a Southwest plane. So when you break it down, we lost over 3,000 people in short-term rentals. And, pool drownings are the top deadly cause. Certainly shootings have been a big problem as well with some of the parties. But this is it. We're in the most dangerous sector of hospitality.
Yeah. So when you're talking about things that could happen, I guess we could talk about a lot of things in terms of just over, crime, fire. There's so many things that could happen. But what are the most common things that are happening that I would say maybe are the number one component that people can do immediately something to remediate?
Yeah, and this is a great question. And I want to quickly preface it by saying I run into people all the time who said, well, I've been inspected, I'm in a market, and less than 5% of markets are that way, but I'm in a market where the fire department inspects our short-term rentals, so we're good to go. I was in McCall, Idaho last week, and they have the firefighters in that market come around, they inspect your home on an annual basis and go, great. The problem is that's less than 3% of incidents. It's what we always think is the big one, but less than 3% of incidents that happen at short-term rentals are related to fire. So you're not good to go just because the local fire department said you're good. The number one cause, and it's something that easily people can address, are slips, trips, and falls. Same as in a commercial environment. It's the reason why when you go to a restaurant, they've got that ugly yellow and black checker tape on the steps going up. It's why when you go into a hospital or a school, there's emergency exit signs and commercial lighting and all these things everywhere. They're trying to make sure people don't fall.
So, okay. So in the short-term vacation rental space, then, what kind of things can we do to start protecting ourselves from, you're never going to be 100% certainty to have that safety all the time. You're just not, but you can reduce risk.
Absolutely.
And you can reduce risk in everything that you do with just a little bit of planning and then a little bit of execution. So like when it comes to slips and falls, those types of accidents, what can you do as a homeowner to reduce the risk?
Well, if you think about this, and I'm thinking, Rodman, you probably have some friends over for dinner once in a while, maybe your sister, your mom, family members, whatever. When they come over, generally speaking, we greet them at the door. We know they're, unless they've been to our house before or been frequently, it's just a humanly thing to do, to greet them at the door, and you go, hey, watch your step on that. I got to fix that curb there. And, my brother left or my son left his toys out. We're used to doing that. But in this industry, we have to remember these people are generally speaking showing up on their own. 60% of the time, the first time they're going to show up at the property, it's dark out, especially as we're heading into winter like we are now. And so lighting is very important. You've got to go through and understand that people who have never been to your property, never thought about the property like you have, of all ages, sizes, ethnic diversities, sexual orientations, all of those things take account that they're going to get out of a car in a place they're not familiar with and walk up into your property. And immediately, that's where we see the most number of incidents happen. So go through that and lay that groundwork first and foremost. A guest shouldn't have to get out of their car and use their cell phone flashlight to find their way with all their luggage, all their confusion, where's the door code, into the main entry of your property.
Yeah. So you've got somebody who's coming in. Of course, lighting's huge. I mean, and I've been to plenty of properties, I'm sure you have too, where you come up at night, you've gotten in late, it's dark, you're fumbling your way around, it's hard to get to the codes, you're trying to get your luggage up the stairs, whatever it might be. But being able to be preemptive in that. So would you say lighting is a big thing there, or is it lighting plus maybe giving them a little bit of a heads up? Hey, when you get in, just so you know, there's going to be some stairs that you're going to navigate, those kind of things.
Lighting, handrails, take into account when you come and go from your house, sometimes you've got your hands full of groceries or whatever, and it's already a challenge, getting the door handle open, all that stuff. So now remember, these people are going to have luggage and they've never been there before. They don't know just how to lean on the handle just the right way to open the door to get in, or they're not going to come through your garage. Lighting is certainly very important, but also having clear pathways. It only takes the thickness of a nickel to create a trip hazard. 30% of our guests are going to be over the age of 60. And as you age, you go from big strides to starting to kind of scuff your feet, almost skating along. So we got to remember, a third of our guests are going to be that one that could trip if the curb or the separation in the driveway is just a little too much. Maybe your foliage on your walkway, you've got these beautiful plants, palms, flowers, rose bushes, whatever. Maybe they're growing out into the walkway that's forcing people to have to step around, and then they're twisting their ankle as they slide off, onto the curb. And maybe the handrail you have isn't a code. You got to have handrails to code. If you've got stairs that are more than 4 steps, 30 inches in height, whatever, you've got to have a handrail that from the bottom to the very top, they can consistently grab and get up, to the top of those stairs.
Yeah. There's plenty of things even around my own house that I still trip over, and I know exactly where they're at. Right. And you're right. Sometimes you just don't lift your foot up. And to hear, you said a nickel? Is that what you said? I mean, that's pretty amazing.
It's like a nickel.
Sometimes, and I think about that. I think at first I was like, what, a nickel? But then I was thinking, no, I can see that where you just slide wrong, or just think about the number of times you stubbed your toe on something you weren't expecting in the house, and, did a little bit of a roll to ease the pain on that. But, when people are coming in, so if I'm a property owner and I'm thinking, okay, I want to start reducing, I want to make sure that I reduce my risk on this. So basically walk to the house, maybe do an inventory on potential hazards.
Yeah. Carpets are a big one. If I had my way, and my wife and I have a short-term rental, there's no rugs in it. There's one thing to have wall-to-wall carpeting, but rugs that are around on the floor, especially on top of a tile or a wood floor, they're trip hazards. And we see so many insurance claims for those. Aesthetically, they're beautiful. There's nothing like getting out of bed at night and stepping on a warm carpet or a rug that's just around your bed. It looks pretty. And then you can walk into the bathroom, use the bathroom, come back to bed. But in a short-term rental, that's now a major trip hazard. Someone getting up in the middle of the night's never stepped over that before. People walking into the house for the first time, having that entry rug, it's got to be big, and they make special rugs for that. I'm here in Maine. LL Bean makes a water hog rug. It's big, it's heavy, it's got a rubber bottom that's designed to be an entryway. And I see so many people going the aesthetics thing. So I think the message I'm trying to send here is sometimes you got to toss the aesthetics out of the way and be more practical than you would be in your own home.
Yeah. It seems to me too, it can be the little things like that light in the bathroom. So somebody's getting up in the middle of the night to use the restroom. There's those lights. I know that a lot of my houses will have these little lights that come on only after dark. So when you go, it might light the stairs, little things like that, that really make a big difference. But you mentioned insurance and insurance claims. So there's going to be a lot of people who are going to listen to this and go, well, this is what I got insurance for.
Right.
I'm not going to go do all this. I'm not going to go through the hassle. I've got insurance. What do you tell somebody like that?
So it's tough. First and foremost, as we highlighted in the beginning, I've been in this industry since 1997. Used to be when I first started out in the 2000s, I was working with property owners. Oh yeah, call your insurance company, tell them you're doing a short-term rental. They do that. No pushback, no big deal. On we go. In this day now, 2024, it's almost impossible to get insurance for your short-term rental. There are about 90% less companies offering policies than there were 10 years ago. Many companies have said, this is too risky of an industry. I want out. And then when you take some of the leaders in the industry, the number one insurer of vacation rentals, they're going to make you do handrails on your stairs. If you have a pool, they want depth markers. And you've got to understand the reason the top insurers are doing that is because they've seen so many different incidents going on. So a lot of people need to understand insurance is not going to be there to protect you. I had a case this morning that came in. I don't do expert witness work, by the way. but they came in and it was a host that wants to sue their insurance company because they're not covering them for a claim. And I said, well, that's not what you had wasn't a building code. I bet that's not why they're not covering you. And they went, well, that's exactly it. But they didn't tell me that in the beginning. I'm like, they don't have to. You signed your application that said your house meets all building code standards. Everybody does when they sign up for insurance. You don't want to find out that you actually didn't when after the claim has come in.
Yeah. Again, mitigating risk. How do you mitigate risk, right? And know before you sign also. I mean, that's the other thing. If you're sitting there thinking that you're insured, and here's the thing, be safe, take the precautions, go that extra mile, protect your tenants also. Because if you're sitting there saying, hey, I'll just if something happens, I got insurance. It's like, well, why look at it that way when you go, you know what? I'm going to make sure I give my tenants the safest place possible to stay, give them the best experience that they can have, and get them back here over and over again because I'm over-serving them.
What you're talking about, so taking on risk is one thing. And I just want to quickly put an insert in here, a footnote. I love this industry. So I'm not here talking people out of listing a short-term rental by talking about some of the scary things that are happening. In fact, safety is the one thing you can do in your property. You can make it safe. I'm not talking like it's a rubber room and people are walking around with those sumo wrestler inflatable things on and they're not going to get hurt. But it's the one thing you can actually do and be successful at, because you're never going to have the right thread count. You're never going to have the fastest Wi-Fi, the right TV channel package, or the sharpest knives in the kitchen that everybody loves. Someone's always going to give you feedback. But the ultimate thing that you get when someone comes and stays in your property and they leave and nothing happened, nothing bad, they just leave and has said, we had a great time. That's your ultimate pat on the back. They didn't get hurt, because so many people do. So that ultimate trust that you have from your guests, you need to live up to that. You need to understand that if they're willing to come close their eyes in your property and trust you, that's pretty huge. So make your property safe so that you're living up to that ultimate trust. We don't often think about that.
No, we don't, unfortunately, because you're thinking about the other parts of the experience and not often about the safety part of the experience. And that, let's talk a little bit about it. I want to transition a little bit because you mentioned like the swimming pools. Now, I do know a lot of properties, including the ones I have. Matter of fact, all the properties I have, they all have a swimming pool. And I know how devastated I would be if somebody got injured or even drowned on the property. I'd be devastated about it as a owner of that property. What kind of things can you do to mitigate risk there?
Yeah, and what I will tell you just real quick, it is devastating. On the sad side of what I do, I meet homeowners who have had a pool drowning. It changes you forever. You will never be the same person. I tell you don't want to go down that route. So we need to understand that 80% of the people who are going to come stay in your home with a swimming pool don't have one where they are. That's why they've rented your house. If they had a swimming pool at home, generally speaking, they're going to stay at home because they're having a great time. They want to go get that experience, so they're not familiar with it. And they're going to have kids with them that are also not familiar with it. And we have all kinds of statistics that show kids don't go to swimming lessons as much anymore. Kids aren't as familiar with swimming as they used to be. So we need to set them up for success. The cheapest, most inexpensive, the first thing that you need to do is participate in a water watcher program. The U.S. government, through the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Council, provides this for free. You can go on their website. They will send you the kit. It's a lanyard that you put around your neck or on your wrist, leave it on the counter at your rental, and it just gets an awareness. Their intent is, and I realize not everyone's going to do it, is whoever's wearing that has now accepted they're responsible for watching the pool, and they're not going to drink alcohol, they're not going to smoke a joint, they're not going to go to the bathroom, and if they are, they're going to pass that lanyard or that wrist card to somebody else who's now 100% in charge of watching the pool and making sure the kids are safe. And so if you leave that out, you've put that sense of questioning. What is this? Oh, we're not going to do that, but why are they doing that? At least you've put a little message in their head that this is different. This isn't just a backyard. This is a place where really bad things can happen and you need to pay attention.
Yeah. Hey, Justin, do most of those accidents come from adults or children?
Most of them are children. We do have adults that perish. Generally speaking, it's access to the pool that causes it. That's why pool alarms are important. A lot of times it's through pool gates. We're seeing many instances where a pool company comes and services the pool, And when they do that, they prop open the gate that goes to the pool from the backyard, from the driveway, and they'll leave a rock or a bungee cord there for the next time they come back to visit again. Well, the guests show up and see that. And so they'll prop it open because, boy, that's a pain in the butt opening and closing the gate. And they don't think about the fact that a little kid's going to go, oh, look at that. I'm going back to the pool. And sometimes the kids aren't intending to swim, but they're just reaching down to touch the water. They fall in, no one's there. So it's really, that pool access side of things that is critically important to address.
Yeah, no, and that's scary. I mean, and I like I said, I've got properties with plenty of pools, and I've got one in my house. And so when we have kids, that's one of my biggest worries is like always have somebody make sure somebody's watching, make sure somebody's attending to the pool, because kids don't know.
No, they don't.
They don't know. I mean, they don't know better. They don't know what they should do. And like you said, they might just be touching the water, or maybe they just think, well, I've gone swimming. I'm just going to walk in and my dad's inside or my mom's inside, and accidents happen. But on the other side of the equation with the adults, I would assume most of the time that's probably because somebody's maybe been drinking a little bit too much or partying a little bit too much, or diving into an end that they should not be diving into.
Yeah. Two parts there real quick. The largest lawsuit that was ever won in our industry, in the short-term rental industry, was from someone who dove into a swimming pool that was too shallow, didn't have depth markers. $11.6 million and a jury award to them. He's paralyzed for life. But you brought up a great point, and that's alcohol. That's a whole different factor. There was a survey that was done 2 years ago, a traveler survey, and it was about alcohol. And they found out, just in general, 76% of Americans acknowledge that at some point on vacation, they're going to get intoxicated. We drink on vacation. That's what we do. I've done it. I'm sure you've done it. Whether it's wine, some beer, and on a cruise or at a resort, you get out of hand, someone's going to come over from security. But you've got to remember, these people are now coming into your home, and half of them in that survey said they don't get drunk at home. So they're coming to your property where they never get drunk at home, but they're going to get drunk in your house. And so that really raises the bar for that much more we have to do from a safety awareness point of view, because you've got people that are going to make dumb decisions. And if you haven't set them up for success sober, you certainly haven't set them up for success when they've had a couple of drinks.
Hey, everybody. I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Vacation Property Seekers podcast. I want to let you know about one question that I get all the time, and that's, how do I forecast my cash flow and my profitability when investing in a vacation home? Now, if you've ever wondered that, or you know somebody who has, you're in the right place. We've created a free training called Financial Forecasting for Maximum Vacation Home Profitability. Now, in this training, we're going to guide you step by step on how to accurately project rental income, estimate your operating expenses, and calculate your returns so you can make informed investment decisions. You can access the free training at vacationpropertysecrets.com. So if you're ready to dive deeper into financial fundamentals and maximize your profitability, visit vacationpropertysecrets.com. Yeah, so you talked a little bit about the things, you talked about depth markers, like with the one case that had that $11 million settlement. You talked a little bit about propping the gate, and the rock and stuff. If I've got a pool and I'm going to get up tomorrow and go, okay, I want to go make sure that I can mitigate risk here, or at least reduce risk to myself for having the pool in the backyard, what kind of things should I be doing to lower the risk?
Yeah. Pool hooks, life rings are great. And in some localities, they require life rings, and sure, put one in. I'm not against it. Generally speaking, though, if someone's drowning in a pool, it's not going to be the life ring that's going to save them. Most of us are going to jump in the pool and help that person out because we're there. What is critically important is actually the pool safety hook. Some people call it a shepherd's hook. Those need to be readily accessible. We're seeing a case in Florida right now where a mother has sued some of the larger OTAs and the host and the homeowner because there was not a pool safety hook. And in fact, she was terrified as an adult to jump in the pool, and her teen drowned in front of her. So she couldn't get in the water. We need to be real. That can happen. There are people terrified of the water. Someone who can't jump in the pool to rescue someone is generally going to be someone who's elderly, has a handicap, has a fear. And that's why I think that's more important than a life ring, and having it accessible, not like on the backside of the pool, because probably the reason they can't get in the pool is also they're slow to move. So having a pool safety hook handy close by is probably one of the most important tools that you can have at your swimming pool.
Yeah, I would think also not just having it there, but putting in your instructions that it is there.
Right.
Like,
Marking it.
being able to notify, because a lot of times I'll go, I won't think a second time about whether there's a hook or whether there's some kind of a preserver. I will never know that unless, I've actually sat down and go, oh, here's my welcome book. Hey, here's some pool safety tips, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I like doing it in a video, and I started recommending that 2 years ago. And I've had several hosts, managers, operators that I've worked with that are like, wow, this is working great. I'm a big believer, and I've even recorded it because of what I do in this industry and, my focus on safety. I've done it for some companies where you record a short minute video that basically gets sent to the guest. Most people are using a CRM, some sort of automated messaging. Just record the video, upload it onto YouTube or onto Vimeo. And the video is basically, hey, parents, and this goes out like 2 hours before check-in. Hey, parents, I know you're excited. You might be sitting in the grocery store. You're getting ready to check in right now. Let me talk to your kids for a second. And then it's, hey, kids, I know you're excited. The house you're about to go to has a swimming pool. You got to listen to your parents. Pay attention to safety that's there. We put some safety features in place. You can't get in the pool unless your parents are with you. And just a couple little things. Now it's been in their focus. You're catching them just before they get there, and it's in their mind, and they're thinking about, oh yeah, there is a pool. All right. We've had our little safety talk, and we're going to be a little bit more prepared when we got there. Again, putting that message somewhere in their head. They may immediately forget about it, but it's somewhere in the back of their head that, oh, this is an environment that may not be as safe as I thought.
Yeah. Well, in a hotel too, if you go to a hotel, we're talking about those depth markers. You're talking about that earlier. A hotel, right. You're going to see the depth markers. You're going to know they're going to be marked. But a lot of times on your personal house, or if you're even got just straight up as a rental, you're not going to have those depth markers. You have a pool. You're not going to have thought about, hey, let's mark the depth here. And put that no diving out there too. So people know, I would say I would probably put a no diving. Yeah. Because if it was 20 feet or 3 feet.
You've got to, and this is a really hard one for hosts and managers. Sorry, I've got bad news for you. If you want to know how you're supposed to set up your pool at your vacation rental, go down to the Ramada, the Hilton, the closest hotel pool. That's what you got to do. You got to have the signs, talk to your doctor if you're pregnant before you get in the spa. No diving, no jumping, no running, no glass objects. They make those same signs. The professional management companies, their insurance requires them to have those on the pools. You shouldn't be supplying that pink flamingo. I know it looks really cool in your marketing photos to have the unicorn in the pool, and you can't provide that stuff. And the top insurers have now said no. Unless it's a U.S. Coast Guard approved flotation device, you can't leave it at your pool. I was just with a company in Florida. They will fire their staff if they don't pop and remove and throw those away that guests leave behind. Because again, they've had an incident. And so we've got to learn, from these different type of incidents that have happened at the pools. But, real quick to close out, you're talking about pool depths. I did an informal survey last week with a group of cleaners, and we went out to a pool. It didn't have pool depths. I asked them all what they thought the depth of the pool was and which was the deeper, the shallow end. 9 different cleaners, not one of them got it right. The pool with 3, 4, and 5, many of them thought the 3 was the 5 end. So again, unless you've got those depth markers there, it's really hard for someone sometimes to distinguish that.
Yeah. So you shouldn't just have the no ping in the pool sign. You should go into a little bit more detail.
A little bit more detail. Exactly.
Yeah. Let's drop that for a little bit. Let's go over to crime. And crime prevention, because and I've stayed in a lot of properties all over the world and, enjoyed them. But every once in a while, I've gotten into one where I'm maybe in an area that I'm like going, I don't know about this one. And, just as an example, I was in Santa Barbara. My children were young. And Santa Barbara is a beautiful community. And we thought, well, you can't go wrong. But we just happened to be in this area where we came out and there was my 8-year-old daughter, there was a homeless gentleman talking to my daughter, but saying stuff that was really, really inappropriate. And he was kind of a sketchy dude, right? And how do you, and I got back with the owners and they're like, well, what do you want me to do about it?
Right.
I can't, he has every right to be out there. Sorry, he was talking to your kid, this and that. But how do we make sure that we put our tenants in safe situations, regardless of the area we're in, because sometimes you could be in the most beautiful area in the world, but you still have to have that safety concern.
Yeah. I actually stayed at an Airbnb in Los Angeles in West Hollywood last week. And I got up to take a shower in the morning. There wasn't a bathroom exhaust fan, so, for the shower. So I opened the little window in the bathroom, and there was a homeless man right out there. He he was like a foot away, almost like he was going to look. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, oh, sorry about that. He was not using the hallway or the alleyway behind there for a safe thing. And so I did. I thought a lot about that, and I do think about that a lot. I think cameras are important. Let's be very clear. You should never have a camera on the interior of your property. But I do think having cameras on the exterior, in that situation, they didn't. I think somebody would have looked up and said, hey, there's a camera. This isn't where I'm going to hang out. So I think that's important. A lot of times when the OTAs will vet a property or a location, they're doing it against the sexual predator database, and they're looking at addresses of where sexual predators are. But statistics are showing those aren't properties where we're seeing incidents happen. Just because there's a sexual predator that marked as one, 2 blocks away doesn't make that a dangerous neighborhood. And so I think that gives a false sense of security. And I think it's better to look more at crime statistics and what types of crimes have occurred in that area. Are there a lot of car break-ins? Are there a lot of burglaries happening in that market? And I often investigate that even before I go stay in an area. I'll quickly look in the news and see that type of stuff. So I think that as a host, when you're choosing a property, I'd kind of bypass, I'm not saying don't look at it, but bypass what seems to be the norm in our industry, which is a sexual predator list, but actually dig much deeper into what types of crimes have been happening around there. And if you do have those, having the cameras up, and preparing your guests for it. I think you can be real about it. Hey, make sure you lock your car and keep your stuff out of the car. We feel like you're going to have a safe experience, but every now and then, if something's made easily accessible, someone's going to take it.
Well, and it's not always 100% either. I mean, even if you figured out that area, and I've got some friends down in Costa Rica in the same community that I'm in, beautiful community, great community, low crime, great place to be. And, they've got a property down there, and she was down there doing a kind of a girls' trip for like a week. And she sent me a video. She says, you're not going to believe this. And literally they've got the outdoor cameras. So some folks thought that they had left for the day because one of the tenants, one of her friends got in the car, went into town. And then on the security cameras, you see these guys come onto the property. They've got their faces covered up like this. And you see them come into the property. They start breaking into the guest house first. But then you see the second that they realize that there's somebody home, right? And they flee. But the scary thing about it is, number one, there were cameras on there. Number two, they're sitting there. I mean, they could have been significantly compromised,
right? Not
being prepared for somebody just to be coming up into the home. They had everything locked, and you can see where they started to unscrew like the screens and stuff to get into the property. But they would have done probably everything right, but still has somebody trying to get into the home.
Exactly. And it's what you're talking about is one of the more challenging sides of this industry. We're putting an open calendar. I mean, you in your own home would never go. I mean, some people don't even put on Facebook when they're on vacation because they don't want people to know that they're not at home. And yet here we are taking a very important investment. In some cases, the most important investment that someone makes is in real estate. And we're putting it on the World Wide Web for the entire world to see that the next 2 days, my property is not occupied. I haven't rented it. It's available. And criminals have figured that out too. And we see lots of instances of that. I personally would never put a sign. I go by people's houses. They'll say it's an Airbnb, or if it's professionally managed, the signs in front of their house, it's a rental. I would never do that. I don't want to call attention to that. I don't think you're going to get a booking because someone drove by and said, oh, look, there's an Airbnb and here's the link to it. Or here's a Verbo and here's the link to it. So there's little things that you can do. On the other side of the crime factor, we also have to identify human sex traffickers. Right now, the largest segment of growth in human sex trafficking is not in hotels or airports. We're seeing it more and more now in vacation rentals. North Carolina has a law on the books right now that if you host, or that they're looking to implement, and other states are as well, Florida certainly, that if you're a host or you own a vacation rental, you have to go through a certain amount of sex trafficking education before you can even be a host. And so we're seeing such growth in that side of things. And so being aware of who's renting your property and the fact that they might use it for this purpose is kind of a scary new thought that people have never considered.
Yeah, I mean, there is a big difference between somebody who checks into a hotel where there's somebody at the front desk, where there's security on site, versus a property like ours where anybody can come in. You're not there to monitor. You're not usually there to greet them. I could see where that would be a draw for that type of element.
Yeah, it's not good. We just, there's a lot of cases. Some are making it in the news. The ones that are making it in the news, I've actually encountered it personally. We were at a property in Utah. So this is how you can catch these things. In Park City, which is just outside of Salt Lake City. It's an easy drive, big ski resort destination. And we went to a property where the guest was there, and the neighbors had reported seeing some issues with the furnace exhaust and thought we should look at it. We tried calling the guest. We couldn't reach the guest, went over to the house, knocked on the door. And the guest wouldn't come to the door. We went and called ourselves in there, and they screamed and yelled and used a lot of profanity to get out. And that was enough to go, something's not right here. They don't want to answer the door. Something's wrong with the boiler. And sure enough, after a deep dive, we learned that they had brought someone up from Salt Lake City and were using this house to do some video of pornography that was, they were underage. It was a really bad situation to personally walk in on and understand that. So the red flag there was, why is someone renting the house that's just a couple towns away? And so, yes, staycations are big and that can happen, but you've got to be looking at when your guests book, if they're booking last minute and they're just a couple towns away, something's off here. This could lead down the party route. It could be down the human trafficking route. There's a lot of different ways it can go, but generally speaking, you're not going to see that as a good type of use of your property.
Yeah. And Justin, I'm going to circle back to something that you said earlier, because I think it's important. Having conversations like this probably scare the crap out of people.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that person is like going, well, I'm not going to get into this business. I don't want to do this.
This is really scary. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, why would I do this? But in anything that you do in life, there are certain risks, right?
There are.
And so the thing about it is not putting your head in the sand on the risk and going, you know what, whatever I'm going to be doing, I'm going to identify the risks that are going to be associated with it. And then how can I just be better, or can I be safer, or how can I make sure that my tenants and the people that are staying with me, I can really take care of them right and mitigate as much risk as possible.
Not only that, but it's a marketing opportunity. There was a survey that came out recently that said 62% of people who had considered staying in luxury paid accommodations did not, because of concerns of safety. So imagine how many more people would be renting our properties if we could make them feel safe. There's a woman who I've been working with for years. She has a property in Waterbury, Vermont. She markets it as a safe mountain retreat. And in fact, if you Google search anywhere in the world, this isn't like just because Justin Ford's seeing it in Maine. If you Google safe Airbnb and you start to type in W for Waterbury, Vermont, her property comes up. In some cases, we see that come up all the time. Imagine that she organically owns safe Airbnb. And now I've been talking about this at some conferences I've presented at. And so I'm seeing others do it. Now it's popping up Pennsylvania, New York. But she's coming to me going, hey, Justin, I've done everything you said. I've made my property safe. I've never had an incident. And I used to be 60, 70% booked. Now I'm almost 95 to 98% booked. And I have people calling me going, do you know of any other properties out there that also have a commitment to safety like you have? Because we can't find them. And we want to, and you're already booked. So huge marketing. You can actually accomplish it.
So is it, did I understand, is there a certification program behind that? Or is that just her doing some steps and then acknowledging that she's done steps?
So what I have done in the industry, and I've done it here, at Breezeway where I work, which is a software company, is I've created the checklist. And the checklist that I created, you would think, all right, whatever, anybody could do homes. Nobody had. That was what was so amazing. There is some focus on home safety for elderly. If you have an elderly parent, that, they come in and sometimes we'll check the property for safety issues. But generally speaking, home safety is not something that's part of what we do in America. And so I went out, looked at what was going on with the type of claims the insurance industry was getting and said, well, wait a minute. We're all so focused on the smoke alarm and the carbon monoxide alarm, which are important, but I didn't know this. I didn't know people could slip and fall, and that was my greatest risk. So I created the checklist. Now we have this checklist that people can use and then document it. So like you said, yeah, there's risk in everything. If you're a chef, you got to check the food temperature, make sure the eggs aren't bad. If you're an auto mechanic, you got to tighten the lug nuts. You don't want someone's wheel coming off going down the road. But with safety, you should be doing a checklist. Just so happens I'm the one who wrote the one that the industry uses, and now government has even fallen on my, NFPA has shared my safety checklist, National Fire Protection Association, the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Council, the NSC, National Safety. So they're looking at what we've done. And if you do it, promote it. You'll get bookings. You'll get good people too. People who are concerned about safety are good guests.
Yeah. So Justin, I guess that brings me to my final things here. Number one, I want people to be able to find you.
Yeah.
And when they find you, I want to get that list. I want that list in their hands. I want to get that list in my hands. That's the first thing that I'm going to do is have you email me that list, because I want to know these things for the properties that I have. So where do people need to go to find you? And then how can they get a hold of that list?
Yeah, so easy. So there's a step before. You'll get access to the list. You've got to be a Breezeway customer, but really cool in the past couple of months, really the past month, we've started promoting what we call a freemium account. It's not full access to everything at Breezeway, but if you have a property, you can sign up for, and I'll send you the link. You can sign your property up and get a look around, see what we do it here at Breezeway. But that makes you a customer, which gives you access to our safety checklist. So yes, they are free, but you got to sign up for a freemium account and take a look what we do. We not only help with cleaning and maintenance of your property, but safety as well. And so that safety checklist, two sides to it. One, there's one thing to do it. Two is to be able to show you did it. And the software helps you with that. We had a guest staying with one of our customers 3 months ago, and she apparently tripped and fell. Now, 3 months later, she calls her insurance company. I think 3 months lines up with FMLA not covering or not being able to go back to work, whatever it was, coincidentally, 3 months. And lo and behold, she calls the host and manager and says, hey, I slipped at your property 3 months ago. I'm filing a claim against you. And the reason I slipped and fell is your outside lights didn't work. Well, thank goodness that host had it on their cleaning checklist from the safety side. Their cleaner has to do a few safety things. One of the things they mark is they check the outside lights. And they took a picture of the outside light on, which goes into the inspection report at the end of their cleaning. It takes a couple seconds to do it.
Yeah.
They came back, showed that report to the person making the claim and went, that's great, but this is what we're going to walk into court with. We checked that light 3 months ago. Here's a date timestamp. So are you sure? And sure enough, they dropped it. So that's a big part of what we're doing, is not only helping you prepare, but document that you've done what you need to do. So if something comes up, you're covered.
Great. Well, I'm going to put those links in the show notes. So definitely give me those links so that I can get people in touch with you. Last thing. Now, we've already gone through the process of scaring the daylights out of people.
Yes.
But so now we're talking about these folks that are there, and they're trying to either optimize their property to make it the best that they can, or maybe they're just coming into the business. If you could go back and think about your one best piece of advice to give them coming in, what would that be?
Get rid of the word if. And that you should get rid of the word if in anything you do, whatever investment you are. Boy, if the stock market ever drops, and I'm stuck with this stock, I'm in big trouble. Approach that with your rental property, your real estate investment as well. When there's a fire, when a guest shows up here, and if you have just that mentality in your mind, you're better prepared for that situation. And it's going to make you consider that because it could happen, that you need to address it. But as soon as you start going, if the stock market ever crashes, I'm screwed, that's saying that it might never do that. And if you have that from the safety point of view, boy, if my rental ever caught on fire, I don't know how the fire department's going to find it because the address marker's buried under a bush. No, when the fire happens, I want the fire department to find my property quickly. I'm going to put a nice big address marker up. And these are all things that I address in my checklist. So get rid of if and work on when.
Love it. Justin, find me a camp up there. I'll be your neighbor. I'd love to come up there in the summers and just hang out in Maine.
It is a beautiful place to be. So I'd love to welcome you up here.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Vacation Property Secrets Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, we'd really appreciate it if you could leave a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. By leaving a review, you not only support the show, but you also help others find and enjoy it just like you did. Also, please share this episode with somebody who could benefit from it. And if you're aiming to build a short-term vacation rental investment business that's based on strong investment fundamentals and not just emotion, I'd love to invite you to a free training that I'm hosting. It's my financial forecasting for maximum vacation home profitability training, an on-demand video course that's completely free. It walks you through the investment fundamentals to build and scale your short-term vacation rental business. You'll also learn how to estimate investment income and your operating expenses to build a projected pro forma operating statement and the potential NOI and return on investment for your property. Just go to vacationpropertysecrets.com to get access to your free training. We'll see you next week for another episode of the Vacation Property Secrets Podcast.